Hello, I'm Sandy Walden of Serenity, your master grief coach and grief coach trainer. You know, I grew up in a very large, very extended family. Um, Deaths, divorces, remarriages, and everybody simply became part of the family. Because of this, death and funerals were always a really regular part of my life. It wasn't something alien to me, it wasn't something unknown. Losing people, saying goodbye to them, was as much a natural part as celebrating a birth. And still, I have to say, I was not in any way prepared for losing my own son, Mike. It'll be 10 years ago in December of this year. Mike died of suicide. He was 23 years old. Nothing in my experience had prepared me for this. Looking back, I realized there was no way for anything to have prepared me. Some of the things I started looking at and reading and hearing said that you're going to feel pain forever. I read things that said healing is not possible. This is the way it is. And what I find very heartbreaking was I would often see or hear things that said this will only get worse. Now, I have two other sons as well. Mike was my youngest. I'm married. And at the time, I was had my 50th birthday was right around the corner. To be told that you're going to hurt this way forever felt like a life sentence. Not only for myself, but for all of these other people that I loved. And that felt as though it was it felt like it was added on top of the pain of losing Mike. So for me, a big piece of this, when somebody will say, when does my pain hurt? It became shifted to, when does the healing begin? For me, that feels better. It doesn't feel like that heavy life sentence. It feels like an expansion of what I'm feeling so that I notice something else. So it's really typical, and it's a completely reasonable thing for clients to ask me, how long am I going to hurt like this? When will this begin to feel better? Will it begin feeling better? So I often share what my experience was. The day that we lost our son, that we found out that our son had died, there was laughter in our house. Tears streaming down your face, eyes swollen, more Kleenex than I can tell you. But we told Mikeyisms. We were telling stories of Mike in all of his many facets. When I think about it, I realize that at that most painful moment of loss and deepest grief, that's when healing began. I want to make it clear these things do not exist within our being all alone. Yes, I will tell you that my thoughts and my feelings were all about the pain, but when I sit back and I think about it, that's not true. Because we're complicated beings, there are so many thoughts and feelings. I also had worry for myself, for my husband, for my sons, for my daughter in law. I had fear. There was nostalgia. There was sadness for the things that would not happen at the same time as there was gratitude for the things that we had experienced. There was overwhelming love and appreciation for the people who showed up to tell us about how they were thinking and feeling. So, appreciation, gratitude, love were existing within my being at the same time as fear and deepest pain, overwhelming grief. When I think about when the healing began, it's much easier for me to see now as I'm so much further along this path to healing. I realize the healing began almost at the same time as the pain. This doesn't mean that the pain was wiped out because of that. It means there was room for both. I talk about balance and rebalancing all the time. I talk about paths all the time. And it seems to me that that moment I was dropped onto that path of pain and grief was the same moment that that path became the path to processing and healing. It's more complicated than we might imagine. For me, for the clients I work with, for the coaches I train, it's helpful to expand, to consider these other things, to notice when the cup of coffee was appreciated. That's a morsel of healing. To think about the friends who brought over food with appreciation and gratitude. That reminds me how deeply loved Mike was and continues to be. And it also reminds me that my husband, my sons, my daughter in law, me, we still mattered to ourselves as well to others. That is healing. No, healing does not mean that the pain was wiped out. Healing sort of oozed in until healing and pain were enmeshed. Over time, with continued work, the healing is definitely the much stronger piece in my life. The pain has ebbed. It's very seldom there. When it is, it doesn't look or sound or feel anything like it did in the beginning. When I work with clients, I wish I could say, give me a calendar. I'm going to mark the day and the time that healing happens. I can't do that. But what I can and will do is ask them to notice when they felt a little bit better that day. Was there something that made you smile? Was there something that when you thought about that person, even if it made you cry, did it warm your heart? Because that, my friends, is healing. And it helps to know that the healing begins in the smallest, most subtle ways, but it's absolutely there. I'm Sandy Walden of Serenity, your Master Grief Coach and Master Grief Coach Trainer. If you'd like to talk about this, I'd love to share, to see your comments and your thoughts and your experiences because it's a very rich thing for all of us. It's powerful for everybody to know that they are not experiencing this alone, that we all have our own unique experience, and yet there's so much we have in common. I want to wish you a day of gentle peace and healing. Namaste.